Well, hello there, guys and gals. Welcome to Miyagi Mornings, episode 105. Today's episode is going to be about homeschooling, and I tried to be as soft as I can with the title and the message in this. So it's not that I mind offending people. You guys know that I don't mind offending people. I think I have a PhD in offending people when they need to be offended. I don't think anybody needs to be offended here. And I also want the message to get through somewhat thick skulls. Some are a little bit thick and some are really thick about this subject. So the title is, please at least try to homeschool your kids. But this is where maybe a nose gets bent or two. When people say they've tried a thing, my follow-up question is exactly, how do you mean that you tried? So if someone says they tried to learn to play a guitar, but they never put a guitar in their hands, they never took a class, they never got an instructor, what they mean is, I looked up what it takes to learn to play a guitar and decided I didn't want to do it. You didn't try. You didn't try. What you did was you looked at a thing and you didn't want it enough to do the things necessary to get it done. This is from somebody who chose that because I actually tried to learn to play a guitar. I actually got a guitar. I bought one. I actually got a couple different people who knew how to play a guitar try to teach me how to play a guitar. And I realized that my musical talent level was about a -3 when it came to, playing any instrument. So that's attempting to learn to play a guitar. Doing research on guitar playing and not ever getting a guitar and, I gave it like 6 months and it was still pretty pathetic. And I mean, 2 or 3 times a week practicing, like at that, like not trying to become like the next great guitar hero or anything, but like just to be able to like throw a few chords together and play a guitar around a campfire, I suck. I'll admit it. And it took more than I was willing to do to get past it, but I did try. When I talk to people about homeschooling, they usually say, I would like to, but I can't. That's one class. And other people have this complete misunderstanding about what homeschooling is and what it means if you homeschool and what your child's future is and social stuff and all. And it's we'll just put that toward the end of the episode. But the people that say they would want to, but they can't, sometimes will also say they tried. And I'm like, so what did you do? And the response is generally some form of, I looked into it. You can see how those guitar and the homeschool thing are the same. If you looked into it, you did research on it, you thought about it, you didn't try. You didn't try. And again, I'm going to come at this from a standpoint of, I accept that there are some parents, for whatever reason you can come up with, literally can't. And I'm going to tell you, they're the vast minority of people say they would, but they can't. Most people could. And I want to frame it for you in a way that will probably make it really clear that you could if you wanted to. What if I said to you, assuming you have children, that if you will homeschool your children, one form or another, for their entire school career, all the way up until they go to college or trade school if that's what they want to do. So they could be in kindergarten now, they could be in 10th grade now, they could be wherever they are. But if you'll do it, when all your kids are out, I will hand you a check, and I'll do it with a smart contract where I can't cheat. I will hand you a check for $5 million. When it's over, I will give you $5 million cash. Free and clear. All you got to do is get them through homeschool. And if that doesn't do it for you, how about $10 million? If in either of those instances you're like, well, I'll figure it. Okay, you can. That's what you just said in your mind. There's a way to do this. Now you have to ask yourself, looking at the current educational system, that's actually an indoctrination system and basically a minimum security prison. And what I challenge you to do is go look at the thumbnail image on this video, because it's what made today's episode happen. I saw it and I could not talk about it. Go look at those kids standing in that line and their age and a freaking armed cop standing next to them, making sure that they stay distance from each other while they cover their face and they look like inmates in a prison. Is taking your child away from that not worth $5 million to you? Is your kid not worth $5 million to you? Because it's the same thing. It's the same thing. And I'm not here today to tell you the ways to do this. That's up to you. Because that would suppose that I know your situation. Now, my kids had an easy out. I'll admit it. I work from home. My wife is practically retired. She can look after them all day. I can do my job. All they had to do was say yes, and we pay for the education. I understand that that's easy. But you know what it seemed like before we did it? Impossible. Even with all that, I was like, wow, man, I have to take care of them all day, every day. You know? But COVID hit. And we had them anyway. And as soon as we did, we went, this isn't so bad. And then I watched my grandson knock out all his work from the homeschool stuff that the school gave him from the district in less than 2 hours a day. And I thought to myself, well, what the hell are they doing with him for the other 7 hours a day that he's in the school? And then I watched as they started sending these kids back to school, putting them in masks, having them distance from each other, teaching them that their friends were dangerous. And I went, you know, as bad as this looks, it's not really anything new. It's not really anything new. It's just made the system more obvious. Now, I know somebody's out there listening to this right now. You're a teacher and you're about to lose your mind. You know what, teachers? You know this system is toxic and poison. And I'll tell you how. You want to piss off a teacher? Criticize the education system. They get angry. You want to see a really pissed off teacher? Ask them their opinion of their employer and the system they work in, and they get twice as mad as when you criticize the system and they tell you things you never even knew about how bad it is. And if you want to see them go Tasmanian devil, full-on conniption, head explode, ask the teacher complaining about the education the following question. Well, you're a teacher. You're inside the system. Why don't you change it from the inside? And literally, like, they go, like, super ultra Karen, eyes blaze red, fire comes out of their eyes and burns you in your stomach with rage. Do you know why? Because you touched the truth. System sucks. There's nothing you can do about it, so you don't get the blame, but you can't expect me to keep my kid in that system so you can get a paycheck. Which is what it is all about now. Your child is a dollar sign for your school district if they're in the desk. That is the most important thing for an I didn't say anything about teachers. Administrators in the system and school board members. Principals. School superintendents. Number one thing they care about first, attendance. Number two, test scores. Not grades, test scores. Because that's how they justify the property tax on the house you think you own, but you rent from your own government. And your kids go into this system. And, you know, even if they weren't teaching stupid shit like critical race theory, but they are, and even here in Texas, in a very conservative district where I have a family member who is a teacher, she was asked, are they doing this? And she said, no, they're not, but it's coming. But it's coming. This is a school district that's overwhelmingly Republican. The state representative and state senator for that district have been Republican for almost 100 years. They generally win their elections with like 80% or more of the vote. And yet, the response was, it's coming. When you send your children to Caesar, you cannot be surprised when they come home Romans. That's where you're at. You have a system now that is designed to transfer the mind of your child not from an uneducated state to an educated state, but from a natural state, from a feral state, from a state where they believe that their rights, because we are born with this understanding that our rights are first and our duties are second. I didn't say our duties are eighth. But our duties are second to our rights. Because without our rights, what duty do we have? What duty does a North Korean have of allegiance to North Korea? To give you an extreme, to make it clear. Do not your rights. If you are to give allegiance to an entity, to a thing, to a community, do you not first need to have your rights recognized? You do. Now, I'm not saying you don't have responsibility. Every right has concurrent responsibilities. But the right comes first. The right comes first. The right is conferred to you when you pop out of your mama and you breathe your first gasp of oxygen, convert it to CO2, and become part of this world. You don't have to be religious to believe that. You only have to believe in the innate rights of human beings as entities. That is all. The educational system, which is actually an indoctrination system, is designed primarily at this point to switch the mind from a point of understanding that their rights and the rights of those around them come first, and then confer responsibility primarily to ensure that those rights remain, to switch that mind over from that feral state, and that does not mean disloyal to your fellow man, because that's what actual rights require. That you remain loyal to yourself, to your family, to your community, and to your fellow man. But it begins with the individual. Collectivism, which is what's being taught now, is that your first responsibility is your duty to the state. Now, for all the other failings of the educational system, that alone is enough reason for you to value your child being in your home, learning the way that you think they need to learn, no matter what you have to do, far more than the $5 or $10 million that got your mind to think, oh, I can do that. And I don't care what you do. I don't care if you get together with 10 other parents and you create a community homeschool, and each parent only takes one freaking day every other week. Now, if I was giving you a $10 million check, you would have came up with that idea all by your little self. Now, I don't blame you, especially most of you that have kids right now. You're younger than me. You got a worse experience, a far worse experience than I did with indoctrination. What do you think your children are getting? What do you think your children are getting? If you are this programmed to be this obedient, what do you expect from your children? Worse. If you let the cycle continue, what do you expect will be of your grandchildren? We live in a society where the slaves house, clothe, feed, and care for themselves, and they go home every day. This is a metaphor for those of you that are a little bit slow because of the indoctrination system. You think it's an education system, but they put upon themselves their own chains. They polish them. And they say to their fellow slaves, look how shiny my chains are. That's what this system has brought us. This system has brought us an entire generation, in fact, I would say multiple generations, that are far too compliant. The natural state of the human being is a feral state. They have succeeded almost 100% in their goal, which is the full and 100% domestication of the human being. They want to domesticate you like a cow. We need to stop calling these people sheep. At least sheep occasionally go feral. Sheep go feral. I can show you places where feral sheep exist. You know how many feral cattle there are? None. Moo. Moo. Their goal is to make you far more domesticated than the cat or the dog. That is not good enough. They're about there. But they want you as domesticated as a cow. Chewing your cud, mindlessly being milked and bled until you've done all that you need to do. And the way that they prime that pump is with the so-called education system. And you're listening to a man who has hired hundreds of people over my career and had them work for me, and can tell you that you can hire someone who went through the entire system, including university, was a straight A student, and they can be absolutely incapable of functioning in the real world. You give your child to Caesar, you send your child to be educated by your enemy, and you are shocked when they end up hating your values and then eventually your way of life. Malcolm X said, only a fool would let his enemy educate his children. He wasn't wrong. There's lots of ways to get this done. I can't tell you how important it is. Every time I watch my grandson finish his work, go outside and play basketball, pet the dog, etc., and 3-4 hours later, I watch a school bus pull up and drop off the neighbor's kid, I'm two things. Grateful that we took the step to make it happen, and I have sympathy for the child getting off that bus. I know that I'm raising a young entrepreneur, a self-thinker, an independent thinker, a self-starter. I'm not conditioning an obedient new generation of human cattle. Those words may sound harsh, but it is a harsh freaking reality. Look at the picture. I'll do you a favor. If you're on my blog, it's embedded in the post and I'll leave it there. If you're on Odysee or YouTube, there's a link down there in the video notes. I want you, if you're still trying to talk yourself out of trying, to go look at that picture, and I challenge you to stare at that picture for 1 full minute and think about its implications. And then really ask yourself, is it true that I can't? Or is it I don't want to, or I have false beliefs about what homeschooling means for my child? This shit about they don't get social interaction, your children are told all day long by teachers not to talk to each other. Now they're told to not even be in the same space as each other. What kind of social interaction is that? The number one place kids do drugs for the first time is in school. The number one place kids are abused physically is in school. Social interaction, my ass. Number 2, well, they won't be able to get into college. Bullshit, bullshit, and bullshit. I have personally interviewed a young man on my show, homeschooled his whole life. You know where he went? Harvard. You know why? He was capable of doing Harvard-level work. Many of you have kids that will never be capable of doing Harvard-level work. They're never going to Harvard. You can put them in prep school and they're not going to Harvard. Your child will achieve as much as your child wants to, is given the opportunity to, and has the potential to, no matter how you educate them. Number 3, they won't be able to get a job. Bullshit. Bullshit. And I'll tell you, we've done things in a hybrid way, and it's something I can just completely set aside all of those objections immediately with. We use an educational program from a company called Excellus Academy. It costs us about $80 a month because the boy watches 1 video a week to qualify for a scholarship. So that takes the price from $250 a month to $80 a month. You can come up with it. You can come up with it. He is not homeschooled. He is educated at home by a private school that is accredited in the state of California. If he went to a school in California, it would be accredited by the same organization. It's a private school at home. He has teachers. He is graded on his work. He is incentivized to take unique electives. He is exposed to very high-level scientific concepts at this video that he watches once a month. Some that he gets, some that go over, but that is starting him young. The educational path will qualify him if he makes the effort for it, for a full scholarship at the National Academy of Science. The guy that founded the program and the school invented the hydrogen car and the personal computer and gigabit Ethernet. I have members of my audience who have homeschooled their kids that had their kids going to community college when they were 15 years old. Everything that you've been told about how bad it is and how limited the options are is 100% steaming, stinking bullshit, and I'll tell you why they do it. They are terrified that you will break your programming and prevent them from ever programming your child. That's the reality. This system is a money suck. It is a money suck, and it is a system of programming the mind. It is a giant multi-billion-dollar business that monetizes your child sitting down and doing what they're told. And they're afraid to lose it. And all it takes is you getting over one word. One word. Can't. Most of you probably, when your child tells you they can't, say, don't use that word in my home. I hope you do. Just apply that same rule to yourself. It's not whether you can or you can't. It's what do you have to do to make it work. There are ways to do it. Take care, guys. I'll be back next week.